After George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney and handed them his sequel trilogy back in 2012, Disney and Lucasfilm treated Star Wars with so much disrespect and lack of care of the cinema series. What may have been a golden opportunity for Disney to continue George Lucas's legacy ended in absolute nonsense and neglect, rewriting and redefining what George Lucas wrote down, contradicting themselves, poor management across the board, and blaming the fans for their failures or what makes Disney the absolute worst in cinema, live action adaptations aside. Now, I was already used to franchises being ruined and destroyed at their home turf, even ones I personally have no attachment to, only for the higher-ups to either apologize or say they'll do better. But George Lucas, who is the creator of Star Wars, sold the series and retired after discussing the future of Star Wars with the head of Disney, Bob Iger. So Disney, after they discarded George's sequel trilogy, created their own sequel trilogy without any sort of plan, dishonoring the original characters, favoring the new characters that weren't properly developed or didn't live up to their full potential, and completely rewriting stories or making unnecessary changes, which is how you end up with characters like Poe Dameron, who originally was supposed to die in The Force Awakens, or how the son from Mortis was meant to be the villain of Rise of Skywalker, but instead Palpatine returned.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
The Emperor is dead.
So what happens now?
We retaliate.
So if anyone was wondering why the dagger was a thing in Rise of Skywalker, it was a dagger that could defeat the sun. But the sun was incorporated in the story because apparently nobody saw the episodes of the Clone Wars that featured the Mortis family. I may have enjoyed some moments in Disney's sequel trilogy, which I dubbed the First Order saga, but ultimately this was not only a sorry excuse of a trilogy of films, but the fact that Disney is continuing to focus on the First Order saga only serves to ruin Star Wars even further. Then comes Disney Plus, which is Disney's streaming service, where they air Star Wars TV shows. Mandalorian, Bad Batch, and other shows that feature beloved characters. The Mandalorian may have had a decent track record in its first 2 seasons, but the traction soon died down after season 3, with the live-action Last of Us outranking them. And then came the Book of Boba Fett, which was not favored by many due to Boba's character, childish antics, and the Mandalorian being shoehorned into the story. It may have worked to some extent, but it wasn't enough to save what was already considered broken. Then came Kenobi, which originally was going to be a movie trilogy, but Kathleen Kennedy was against the script and was reduced to a 6-episode series. Instead of Kenobi discovering more about his destiny to serve Luke in the long run, all while teaming up with Cody and keeping Luke safe, we got little Leia being chased by bandits. Poorly. Canonical events either breaking or be a retcon, and everyone's personal favorite, the coat.
Almost there.
This makes that scene from All Dogs Go to Heaven look like an Oscar nominee. Fuck the Oscars, by the way.
Fuck the Oscars, you know? Fuck the Oscars! Fuck you! I'll tell you! This is bullshit!
And on the topic of Kenobi, the show writer didn't know about Rise of the Sith, nor did the Grand Inquisitor actor look at Rebels.
The show writer didn't even know what happened in The Revenge of the Sith, and the Grand Inquisitor actor in the show didn't even watch the animated interpretation of his character to prepare for the live action role. It's like the same thing they did in Halo. They don't even watch, they don't even look at the games, they don't look at the lore, because they don't care.
So far, the movies underperformed or simply lost money, shoutouts Part 1 for being worth a damn, and the only good live-action show was The Mandalorian. So after the negative reception of the Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi, and after the report of Andor being based off real-life politics, I told myself if Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau weren't working on these Star Wars shows, then I don't care. Then came Ahsoka, which was written by Dave Filoni and him alone, and even this one was also met with negative reception. So the only positives coming from Star Wars on Disney Plus are The Mandalorian Seasons 1 and 2, the conclusion of the Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Visions, Tales of the Jedi and Empire, and Andor, allegedly. George Lucas spoke out regarding how he feels about Star Wars and said that Star Wars was going on a different direction than he originally intended, but the first 6 films are basically his. He called them his children, and when he sold it to what he calls the white slavers, he summed up by saying that when you give it up, you give it up. And that really bums me out because this follows the it is what it is motive, which I hate. He sold Star Wars because he was retiring, and Bob Iger said that George was getting old. So what happens to Star Wars when George passes on? George thought that selling Star Wars to Disney was the right call, and I don't blame the man for selling the franchise, but personally I would have just kept it to the grave. I blame Disney for discarding George's sequel trilogy, not planning ahead with the First Order saga, and the worst outcome to come when Disney tampered with Star Wars: personal agendas.
Oh boy, we're about to go there, aren't we? Alright, well, let me just grab this.
The focus on diversity, identity, and activism makes absolutely no sense. What could be beneficial from pushing one's agendas into a beloved franchise like Star Wars? Star Wars has always been about the ongoing struggle between two factions, whether it be the Republic and the Separatists, the Rebellion and the Empire, or the Jedi and the Sith, and the internal conflicts between these two factions. The one that suffers the most out of this is Anakin Skywalker, from becoming a Jedi to one day save his mother and to protect his wife, to turn into the dark side to save his wife after having a nightmare about her dying at childbirth. Anakin goes from this little boy to a strong man on a conquest to save and protect the ones he loved, and when he failed on both counts, he gave in to the dark side and became a darker alternative of himself. It's a story of struggle, conflict, and of course love. It's not about ethnicity or sexuality, nor is it about having a stronger focus on a female audience, which Star Wars has already. Also, let me show you exactly how you do the Force is female the right way.
May the Force be with my...
No, not that. The other one. Jesus Christ, trying to keep it friendly here, people. Jeez.
Ladies, please.
Wow. Wow.
Wow, this is simply amazing.
It is amazing. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Yes.
That is the costume from Return of the Jedi, Princess Leia's slave girl.
The slave girl.
The slave girl.
I bet you've seen that a lot, huh?
Yes, I've seen that a lot.
I know.
Yes. And I got to say, that's the finest they have ever looked on your show.
Really?
Yes.
They do look great.
Yes.
Hello, ladies.
So after the failure that was the First Order saga and what was airing on Disney+, Disney and Lucasfilm continued their pointless parade of diversity, activism, and blaming fans for their failure by calling them a racist and a sexist, all while treating the very franchise that Disney bought like shit. It's like a class bully scribbling all over what you've drawn or written down. It just looks like a fucking mess. And I see that in the upcoming show, The Acolyte. This is written by someone who has no idea what Star Wars is. She doesn't have a favorite Star Wars movie, and her inspiration was crying like a little bitch when she saw Frozen and wanted to make something like Frozen and Kill Bill.
Frozen meets Kill Bill. I'm curious what that means. Can we elaborate? Is this are we getting a musical?
You're not getting a musical, although that was Kathy's first question when I pitched it to her. She was like, "So a musical with a snowman?" I was like, no. The arc, the two sisters, like that whole thing. It was something that I related to on such a deep level, even though it was a quote-unquote children's story.
What the fuck does that mean? What?
I'll tell you what it means.
In what version of English does this actually mean anything?
And to make matters worse, another person walks in and says that her activism is her guide to making a Star Wars movie taking place in the First Order saga. Now, important question, and this is personal, so bear with me. Who the fuck are Leslie Headland and Sherman Obai-Chinoy? No, seriously, who are these people and how did they come across writing these adaptations for Star Wars? I've honestly never heard of them before until I heard about The Acolyte in the upcoming Rey movie. There are also some other directors and writers that I've never heard of until they made their own Star Wars adaptations as well. Dave Filoni made a name for himself after the Clone Wars, so him along with Jon Favreau was a nice recipe for success when it came to The Mandalorian. Now these random people are showing up out of nowhere and just touching something that doesn't belong to them, and no one is excited for any of it. No one wanted The Acolyte because of the focus on personal agendas and not about compelling stories. No one wants the Rey movie because it's written by somebody who is guided by activism and wants to make men uncomfortable.
I like to make men uncomfortable. I enjoy making men uncomfortable.
All right, fuck this shit. I'm out.
Also, not many people liked Rey anyways due to the lack of character development and not having a family lineage. I honestly feel so bad for people who gave it their all, even in these dark times. I feel bad for Daisy Ridley and John Boyega because their talents were wasted in this sham of a movie trilogy. I feel bad for the original cast of Star Wars, both prequel and original, because their characters were treated horribly. I feel bad for people who wasted their artistic talents making these wonderful looking locations and aesthetics for these poorly developed films. And somehow it's continuing. How can anyone at Disney and Lucasfilm look at how bad this situation is and think this is fine?
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
How can they constantly blame the fans for their failure and continue to make flop after flop, disaster after disaster, and lose a shit ton of money as a result? The people over at Disney and Lucasfilm aren't even trying to admit they're wrong and take responsibility for their shitty actions. Shit like this is why people hate Disney Star Wars. Not normal and regular Star Wars that was written by a man who based his series from philosophy, history, and perhaps religion.
The dark side is pleasure, biological, and temporary, and easy to achieve. The light side is joy, everlasting, and difficult to achieve. The great challenge. Must overcome laziness, give up quick pleasures, and overcome fear, which leads to hate. Amen. Now let us pray.
People describe Disney's purchase and treatment of Star Wars as Disney Star Wars, constantly making bad decisions and blaming the fans for their failure, firing a beloved actress over some comments she made on social media, which prompted said actress to file a lawsuit against Disney for wrongfully terminating her and teaming up with the owner of Twitter, or X.
If somebody's gonna try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself. But go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob.
Many people have already checked out of Star Wars because of Disney Star Wars. Anyone who is fed up with their antics are not looking forward to the Acolyte, or Skeleton Crew, or the Rey movie, or Mandalorian Grogu. Going back to George Lucas, he explained in detail what the Force is and how the female characters in Star Wars became beloved characters.
The core of the Force. I mean, you got the dark side, the light side. One is selfless, one is selfish. And you want to keep them in balance. What happens when you go to the dark side is it goes out of balance, and then you get really selfish and you forget about everybody, and you ultimately lead yourself, because when you get selfish, you get stuff, or you want stuff. And when you want stuff and you get stuff, then you are afraid somebody's going to take it away from you, whether it's a person or a thing or a particular pleasure, experience. Once you become afraid that somebody's going to take it away from you, or you're going to lose it, then you start to become angry, especially if you're losing it. And that anger leads to hate. And hate leads to suffering. Mostly on the part of the person who's selfish, because you spend all your time being afraid of losing everything you've got, instead of actually living. Where joy, by giving to other people, you can't think about yourself, and therefore there's no pain. But the pleasure factor of greed and of selfishness is a short-lived experience. Therefore, you're constantly trying to replenish it. But of course, the more you replenish it, the harder it is to, so you have to keep upping the ante. You're actually afraid of the pain of not having the joy. So that is ultimately the core of the whole dark side, light side of the Force. And everything flows from that. Obviously, the Sith are always unhappy because they never get enough of anything they want. Mostly their selfishness centers around power and control. And the struggle is always to be able to let go of all that stuff. And of course, that's the problem with Anakin ultimately is. You're allowed to love people, but you're not allowed to possess them. And what he did is that he, fell in love and then married her and then became jealous. And then he saw in his visions that she was going to die. He couldn't stand losing her. So in order to not lose her, he made a pact with the devil to be able to become all-powerful.
I am becoming more powerful than any Jedi has ever dreamed of, and I'm doing it for you.
But of course, when he did that, she didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore. So he lost her.
Anakin, you're breaking my heart.
Once you were powerful, being able to bring her back from the dead, well, if I can do that, then I can be Emperor of the Universe. I can get rid of the Emperor. I can do everything. I can make everything the way I want it.
And together, you and I can rule the galaxy. Make things the way we want them to be.
And once you do that, you'll never be satiated. You're always going to be consumed with this driving desire to have more stuff and be afraid that others are going to take it away from you. And of course they are. Because every time you get two Sith together, you have the master, you have the apprentice, and the apprentice is always trying to recruit another apprentice to join with him to kill the master. The only way to overcome the dark side is through discipline. The dark side is pleasure, biological, and temporary, and easy to achieve. The light side is joy, everlasting, and difficult to achieve. The great challenge. Must overcome laziness, give up quick pleasures, and overcome fear, which leads to hate.
There's no women in the movies. I said, who do you think the heroes are in those films? What do you think Princess Leia was? She is the head of the rebellion. She's the one that's taking this young kid that doesn't know anything and this boisterous, I know everything guy who can't do anything and trying to save the rebellion with these clowns. I said, she's the hero of the movie. And it's the same thing with Queen Amidala. Even though she has Jedi on her side, she was still the hero prime mover. And they said, well, but there's no women, you know. I said, you can't just put a woman in pants and expect her to be a hero. You know, they can wear dresses, they can wear whatever they want. It's their brains and their ability to think and do and plan and be logistical, and you know, that's what the hero is.
Padme was a senator who fought for the greater good for the Republic and its people, in addition to partaking in the fight whenever she needed to. Ahsoka was a young Padawan who learned a lot from Anakin, and after leaving the Jedi Order, she became more mature to the point where it felt like that she became a master. She had a great friendship with Padme and a great partnership with Bo-Katan. Princess Leia became a general of the New Republic after a battle against the Empire and managed to hold her own in fights, just like her mother. Asajj Ventress was once a Jedi who became Count Dooku's apprentice and was tossed aside due to how powerful she was. I didn't know what Darth Disciple was until season 3 of The Bad Batch, so already there's more of this character that I wasn't aware of. Iden Versio was once loyal to the Empire, that is until she witnessed what Operation Cinder has done to her homeworld, and defected to the New Republic. She was an excellent leader when she led Inferno Squad during her time with the Empire, and she did exactly that when she served the New Republic. All of the characters I mentioned went through their own trials and struggles. No character is just given their status and legacy. That's something that everyone has to work up to. That's just how life is. You can't give yourself the things that makes you strong and powerful. And just because you have all this wealth, fame, and power doesn't make you a good person by default. It's what you do with it that makes you either good or bad. So when I hear statements like there's no good without bad or no light without darkness, my response to that is not to focus on light or darkness itself, but focus on who or what lurks inside.
But the world's made of light and darkness. You can't have one without the other, because darkness is half of everything. Sort of makes you wonder why we are scared of the dark.
It's because of who's lurking inside it.
Sure, the light may bring the best comfort imaginable, but who is the one within that light?
Hey, it's okay. Shh, I'm your guardian angel, Finn. I'm here to save you. Really? Mm-hmm. Come here. Let the angel pick you up.
Oh, okay. This is radical.
Are you comfortable? Would you like some snacks?
I'm fine, thank you.
Here, let me clean you up and mend your clothes. I'm taking you to the chamber of the crystal eye.
Oh, yeah!
Trust in your guardian angel.
Put me down, lady!
As you wish.
Ah! Oh, man. Everyone wants to eat me up. It's probably because I'm so sweet.
Now, for little kid soup. The secret is a low flame over a long period.
That's Jake's secret, too. Sure hope he saves me.
I will save thee, Finn.
Lady, you are sick!
So, just to recap, The First Order saga disrespected not only the legacy of the characters from the Clone Wars saga and Empire saga, but also disrespected George Lucas. Disney Plus, for the most part, is filled with terrible content, and all these writers and directors have no clue what Star Wars is and focus on the wrong topics. They say all this shit about how it's the fans' fault that Star Wars is going downhill instead of just acknowledging their wrongs and trying to fix them, and if this is the kind of behavior that they're putting out, then clearly this is a lost cause. This is not the Star Wars that George Lucas made that was loved by many people because of his compelling and relatable story with characters to back it up. This is Disney Star Wars, where the original characters and story is being tampered with by random people who don't know what Star Wars is, and it's not only an insult to creative writers and actors and artists who think things through and knows right from wrong. Disney Star Wars is an insult to God.
And no one is allowed to take responsibility for their actions. They have to have a source of why they did the wrong that then absolves them of the wrong and puts the blame on the other person.
Really sums up the essence of Disney Star Wars, if you ask me. But anyways, hello everyone, I'm Joel Brun, and I want to thank all of you for seeing this all the way through. I normally don't make videos like this, but I feel like this needs to be said because this whole Disney Star Wars thing is getting absolutely out of control, to the point where I don't think even George Lucas wants to come back and fix this thing. I said it once and I'll say it again, this whole situation needs a complete overhaul because what's happening right now is absolute chaos and it really should not be a thing. So I want to thank all of you for seeing this all the way through. It is currently 3 a.m. at the time of me exporting this. I am tired as hell. So hopefully everyone will stick around to see what other dumb shit that I do in the long run, because my head hurts and I want to be relieved of all the fucking pain. And hopefully you will be along for the ride.